too in psychology is we always say every question, if asked properly, gives you the answer that you want. So instead of saying, instead of asking my students, could you try this? Instead, I'm going to ask them, what would happen if you tried this? They're going to think they came up with that answer by themselves. When they walk away and they try that technique, they're going to come back and report to me, the technique that I thought of worked. Does that make sense? So it's kind of a bit of a spin because you already know the answer. You're just helping them to get there. Something that I also do is I drop a lot of hints, and we call it priming the pump. Back in the days when you couldn't get water through regular tap, you'd have to use a well and you'd have to pump, pump, pump. And sometimes it would take a really long time because the water's already drained. So you actually have to get it ready. And then people could actually line up and get the water that they need. So sometimes what I do is I sprinkle little crumbs, like Hansel and Gretel. And then the prize is there, but I'm leading my students to it so that when they find it, they really feel excited, like they thought of this all by themselves and it really works. So that's something that I try and do is I lead people to do it. The most important thing, though, about influence and persuasion is to think about not just how do I get somebody to do something, but how do I get them to like it to the point where they feel like, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to help you. That, I think, is the truest gift. I sometimes will think of a scenario where I really desperately need help, and there's no way I can do something by myself. But the way that I pitch it to people is going to be very important. So I'll give you an example right now. In real life, I'm putting on a production of a play, and it's about violence against women. I'm putting it on at my university. I don't know the first thing about putting on a theatrical production, but I know it's important. I really want our university to start discussions about sexual assault against women. So I have some friends that might know something about production, directing, acting, things of that sort. The problem is, I want all the money that we earn to go to a charity. So what person in their right mind would do something with no pay compensation involved? I started off with one person saying, I just want you to know right now, we can't pay you. And what she did was say, okay, well, here are the names of some people that you can go ask. Then I started getting a little bit smarter. Maybe I shouldn't start off saying we can't pay you. Maybe I should start off saying, here's what you're going to get out of it. You're going to get experience. It's going to go towards a great cause. It's going to raise awareness. It's going to raise money. You're going to get exposure. Oh, and I'm sorry we can't pay you because it's all going to go towards that great cause. So after I started changing my tactic, I realized people are saying, oh, I didn't even think about the money. So I'm pleased to say I now have a violinist. I have people that are trying out for the acting parts. I have someone throwing my wine and cheese. So there are ways that I can approach the same exact matter and change the order of my request that will make people decide later on, I really appreciate you choosing me to give you my time for free because it gives me the opportunity to do something I feel good about. And I think that's the most important thing, is making people do something that you knew you wanted them to do. There's no one else that you wanted for that position, but making them feel like they signed up for it, that they weren't agreeing to help you because you scared them or because you made them, but they wanted to please you or they felt an intrinsic value. They somehow changed the meaning of what they were doing, that really boring task. They changed it around. That was my idea, to spend an hour of my time doing this very important task because I feel like it was so important and a good use of my time. So with that said, I wanted to thank you very much for your time today. I hope I was able to share some of the psychological concepts that I learned. And I want to open it up to a question and answer session. Thank you.
I wonder, can you comment on the very start of persuasion technique for the psychology? Using the single number to make you unconscious state to buy something.
Yes. Okay. That is such an excellent question. There are very subtle ways to convince people. So an example was brought up about supermarkets. What they do is they put certain brands at eye level for adults, and then kids get their own eye level of candies, and suddenly you walk out with, who put all these candy bars in here? So there are those kind of subtle techniques. Another very subtle thing that one of my supervisors taught me, and this requires me to put this down for a bit, is I would sit with people that were really, really upset in a counseling session. They were so upset that I felt scared. I felt like they were going to hit themselves or throw something at the wall. And so I'd get really nervous. This is when I was an intern. I'd go to my supervisor and say, you got to come in here. This person's going to throw my stapler at the wall. So he taught me a technique. He said there's this thing in psychology called mirroring. People really like to look in the mirror. Sometimes when they pass by a reflection, they'll just look at themselves. Even if they just looked at themselves 5 minutes ago, they know that every hair is in place. They will still look at themselves, and it's pleasing to just see something that reminds you of yourself. What they also know is that babies really like to do this thing called mirroring. So I was saying I'm coming over a cold because I have a 6-month-old nephew and a 2-year-old nephew, and they're really cute, but and I couldn't stop touching them. So we play a game. My 6-month-old nephew, what kind of games are we going to play? He can't play chess with me. We play a game where I smile at him and he smiles back. It's the funnest game in the world. We're going to do it again. I'm going to smile at you and you're going to smile back. And it's a very strange game because us as mature adults, we play this game too. We just don't know it. We don't know that we really like when people smile at us and we smile back. So my supervisor knew this concept about mirroring, and he taught me. Next time someone's in your office and they're very agitated, they're going to do some sort of body motion that makes you feel uncomfortable. So what are some 动作 that people do when they're really upset? Somebody show me. Okay, they're going to pound. Okay, how are they sitting? Are they sitting like this? No, how are they sitting? Like this? What else? What was that? Okay, maybe like that. Yeah, arms crossed. This is a very common one. So chances are they're either like forceful with their actions, or they have their arms crossed. They're closed off and they're hunched over, right? My supervisor taught me this thing called mirroring. He said next time someone does that to you, slowly, because they can't know that you're doing this. If they know you're doing this, it's off. It's like the lines. If you know that they're just pointing at C because it's an experiment, then they'll point at B or whatever. So he said, cross your arms, slowly talk to them like you really want them to feel like you're connected to them. You're a mirror of what they're feeling. So you go and take on their mannerisms. And then slowly, as you're talking to them, slowly, take out one arm. Very, very, very slowly, talk for about 2 more minutes like that, then take off your other arm. And the weird thing is, they will start to mirror you. So only after they take out that one arm and they followed you, then you take out your other arm, you talk about something else, and then you straighten up your back until they finally mirror you. And then you relax into your chair, and pretty soon that person is no longer angry because you have managed to mirror them and help them to mirror you. So the interesting thing about our mind and body is that they're very connected, and people, yes, it's very popular now to say mind-body connection. But psychologists were studying this, and they said, how related are our facial expressions to our mood? So they would ask people to rate themselves. They'd give them a questionnaire. How happy are you right now? On a scale of 1 to 10. 你話歡喜. So, 就冇歡喜，就冇快樂嘅， and 就歡喜嘅，你使唱歌。 So most people are going to be at a 5. I have no reason to be extremely happy or extremely sad. I'm going to be a 5. Then what they ask people to do is smile for 1 whole minute. Now 1 minute is a very long time to hold your breath or to smile. If I asked you to do it now, which I won't, we could be talking about something else, you're continuing to smile. At the end of that 1 minute, your muscles might be a little bit shaking because it is really hard, like, you know, if you're at a wedding to keep smiling like that, it's very, very hard. Then if I were to give you the questionnaire again, people moved up at least 3 to 4. So if I was a 3 or 4, I went to a 7 or 8. It's a very strange thing. So those subtle tactics are very important. People may not know, and they shouldn't know, that this is what you're doing, because once they know, they're not going to follow your hand motions. They're not going to smile back at you. So thank you for asking that very important question. Are there any other questions? Yes.
We've been told, when you're on the phone, when you smile at the other people on the line with Pacific, on the telephone. Is that true?
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised, not because of the actual facial expression, but it's, if I'm smiling, I have to perceive on some level that I must be happy. So it's that same idea. If I give you a questionnaire, it's like, I'm suddenly happier. I don't know how that happened. Because your mind is triggering. If I'm taking on this facial expression, I must be happy, so the inflection of your voice probably matches it. It's the unconscious level of cognitive dissonance. That's a good question. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Yes?
Could you back to how your mother can make everybody marry? It's just a principle to apply to your mother.
Yeah, she's got a few of these going on. Because, after I studied it, I'm like, oh, I always challenge myself to apply it to somebody that I know. So I know, okay, she's got the likability factor, but she does the things like, my mother always taught me, when you go to buy a car, 请看拉胎不要紧, okay? When you go to the bank and you're asking for a loan, you better make sure that you have your best jewelry on. So she knows how to read social cues very, very well. Some other things that she does, because she's my mother, so it's not like she's a CEO of this and that, but she has a social pull with people so that when she's not there, they'll say, well, how would she arrange the flowers? So she manages to get into people's minds in terms of, well, we'll either wait until she gets here for her approval, or we'll guess how she might do it. Thank you. Yes, Charmy. My mother, she will adjust herself for the situation. So with her children, yes, very, 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 very strict. With her sisters, no. Yeah. Yes.
One more question.
Yes.
How important is for the eye contact in terms of the persuasion part?
Ooh, that is such a good question. I've done a talk before for NATWA about communication, and people who study communication, we know that, well, let me ask you, what percentage do you think is based on content? Verbal, what people say? Yeah, it's actually so, so small. You would think, I would want to think that, I put a lot of thought into the PowerPoint slides and you all are going to remember it, but statistics show that people will forget about what you said, but they'll remember the way that you presented it. And they'll think about the examples and things of that sort, something that they can relate to. So it's not the actual content. What we know is that about 75 to 80 something, it depends on which study you look at, communication is all nonverbal. So it's the way that people are holding their bodies, it's the way that they're looking at other people, it's even how fast people are talking, how many ums and you knows that people are using, that every time somebody perceives something like that, it has more pull than what you're actually saying. Another twist to it, though, is that there's the cross-cultural piece. So when I am dealing with staff that just immigrated over from Asia, chances are high that they're not going to look at me in the eye. When I first started, I would think, oh, insubordination. But that didn't last very long because I realized, no, this person wasn't born here. And they were taught